Okay, here we are stumbling along and getting a little closer. How do you wind up needing to wear a woolen hat in San Diego area I'm kind of, I don't know, I don't trust that.
I knew you were going to ask that question. I absolutely knew you were going to ask that question. So I'm already all prepared with the answer, which is we save on electricity and we don't heat our house. And the cats and dogs with nice furry coats love it. But us mere mortals, not so much. The
Well,
two-leggeds are not very happy.
I had sad to say about, I don't know, I'm going to call it a month ago. I had two Jack Russell Terriers and one mixed breed. And the Jack Russell Terriers, uh, they were catching and killing one snake a month, more or less. I mean, I wasn't marking it on the calendar, but let's call it one a month. And they would always bring the dead snake to my front door, of course. Here, Charlie, this is for you.
Yeah, snake
And,
medicine.
um, and they throw it up in the air and all of that. Well, sad to say, a month or so ago, the mother of the two, there was the mother and the daughter, got bit on the stomach by a snake. And I didn't know it because, they've been catching and killing these snakes for a long time. So I didn't make it into a big deal every time they caught and killed one. And they brought the snake up to the front door. And I was like, okay, good as usual. And then I went outside about 15 minutes later. I'm not even sure what I went outside for. And the mom could barely get up on my veranda. And I thought, wow, that's strange. And within another 15 minutes from that, she had passed. And I was so, I don't know the right word, but interested to notice that we're at the vet's. She's passed. I think she actually passed on the way into the vet. She was laying on her side and her eyes stayed open. I somehow, knowing nothing about anything, I was under the impression that the eyes would just close because doesn't it take some kind of muscular activity to keep the eyes open? No, apparently. So she was laying there looking incredibly serene. And I know the veterinarian, it happens to be a woman, and she's very kind and very thorough. And so when she said she's passed, and I just saw her laying there with her eyes open, I couldn't believe it, you know. Um, but indeed she had. So I think with like when I watch certain um, quote unquote nature programs, and it's the for instance the eagle capturing and eventually eating the whatever little prairie dog or something. And what's the name of the very famous, very fantastic British man that does all the nature stuff?
Oh,
Excuse me?
Attenborough,
Attenborough,
David
Yeah,
Attenborough.
David Attenborough.
yeah.
Yes.
And he always makes it sound so exciting. And I remember thinking any number of times, and he's a great guy. I mean, he's really a treasure. But I remember thinking, it's great for everybody but the little prairie dog that just got picked up. Uh, and with my two dogs throwing the snake up in the air and having a great old time, um, looked like wonderful fun. And I must admit that I don't particularly like snakes because mainly I'm afraid of them. And I don't know which snakes are venomous and which ones aren't. which adds to my fear. And I know a Thai man that if you call him, if you have a snake like in your house, my friend was taking a little nap when he lived in the house next to mine a few years ago, taking a little afternoon nap downstairs bedroom, and he woke up to find himself in bed with a snake. And he said, he's like laying back there, and he said, his name is David, and he said, "Oh, David, don't make any sudden moves. This snake is not going to just bite you because he's in a bad mood." And then whoosh, got out of bed, put the cover over the snake. And anyway, there's a man in our extended neighborhood who's very happy to come over, capture the snake for you. Perhaps, depending on what kind of snake it is, he'll eat it for dinner, literally. And I couldn't help but think, wow, that's the difference that a little knowledge can make in the world. Here's this guy like doing this kind of thing, like he's doing this over here because he's intending to grab the snake's head with his left hand. And for him, a little bit, I think, like my dogs, I think for him, he enjoys it. But depending, and all the snakes we have aren't venomous, of course, but if you're dealing with venomous snakes, it's not something I'm going to be doing because you need a whole bunch of knowledge that I don't have. So I think that goes on in life in general. That often we're afraid of certain people, certain activities, certain circumstances. And if we can manage to continue to pay attention, what we wind up understanding is that in general, in this, or at least in this one arena we're in at the moment, we don't really have a lot of confidence in ourselves. And, as someone said, maybe it's been said thousands of times, but someone that I just heard of it recently, where someone said, inside the confines of your head for each individual person is like the most sophisticated movie production facility in the world. And gee, what kind of movie should we make today? Shall we make it a tragedy? Shall we make it a comedy? And I wound up watching a few Robin Williams clips again the other day. And oh my God, he was, as I'm sure everybody knows, he was one of the most creative people on the planet. And the thing that really touched me about him was he also did great dramatic roles, if that's what you call it. Mm-hmm. Roles that were really sad. And when he played, I remember, what did they call it? Some kind of photo. It was when he was working in the photo shop. And he had some kind of, what's the proper word? He had some kind of fixation with a woman whose family used to bring in the photos. And he always used to separate out the photos of her and duplicate copies that he would keep. So he could play like really dark stuff. But of course, mainly he played comical stuff. And, I like to think about that sometimes because I like to ask myself, so what role are you playing today, Charlie? because pretty much no matter who I am or what I'm saying, I'm playing a role. And that's not a bad thing. And maybe we really have no choice but to play a role because we have such a capacity to be so many different kind of people. And it wouldn't be right really if we were always happy. And it certainly wouldn't be great if we were always sad. And we can ask ourselves, I think the difference, sometimes I realize I'm just playing, like right now, I'm playing a certain role. And I realize I'm playing a certain role, one of many. And then other times where it gets a bit dangerous, for me at least, is when I no longer experience myself as playing a role, but I experience myself as this is Charlie. And Charlie doesn't happen to be in a great mood today. I'm just making this up now. Charlie doesn't happen to be in a great mood today. And it feels like this is 100% Charlie. And it ain't going to be changing anytime soon. Then I lean back maybe and I take a couple of breaths. And with my little dog that died, got bit by the snake. You know, you can't tell a Jack Russell Terrier. You really shouldn't be messing around with those snakes. Because the Jack Russell Terrier is going to go, give me a break. What are you kidding me? I'm a Jack Russell Terrier. What do you expect me to be doing? Going to church on Sundays? And sometimes we're really playing with fire, as the expression goes. And so that I hope when we do take on some dangerous roles, that we really have the ability to enjoy and be enthralled by what it is we're doing. Because, at least for me, I don't know, I'm happy to hear from many of you, is sometimes I'm not enthralled for way too long. And whether it's a week or sometimes even one full day without being enthralled is a bit too much for me. And inside this head, inside all of these other heads that are looking back at me, is one of the greatest film production studios in the world. And we are each like the director, the producer, and playing the starring role. And I think it's way too easy to forget that we're actually playing a starring role and it's not who we really are. And, you know, with Zen practice, you just can't stop yourself from asking a question or a series of questions to the master. And like, if you ask the master something like, Master, why am I always so depressed? And the master looks at you like, kind of like you interrupted him a little bit even. And he says, excuse me, but who's asking that question? And that's as far as he's going with it. But one thing I can guarantee you, he's not going to go into a conversation about why you've been feeling depressed. Oh my God, why add to the confusion? And one of my best friends recently, an athletic woman who's been a dancer and such, so really has a great way of using her body. And basically, she stepped off a curb without paying full attention, which I've certainly done a few thousand times in my life. And she wound up, I don't know how it happened, but she wound up breaking her heel. And apparently, it's quite an ugly break. And this was a couple of weeks ago. She wrote to me saying, I spent parts of the last 2 nights crying, not because I was so emotionally distraught from what happened. She said, but because the bloody pain was so intense. And there I was at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just sitting there sobbing. And all I did was step off a curb without paying attention. It's what can happen. And great for all of us that it doesn't happen all that often. So, last class, which was two weeks ago, I was working with a person doing a very simple quote unquote technique or exercise. And it was not to go into the specifics, but it was something like I had him doing this. It's part of what's known as brain gym. And brain gym has been around for many years. And I do a number of things like brain gym, mainly because I was intensely involved in Aikido for a long time. And you have no choice. Well, you do have a choice, but anyway, you're involved in, at times, as you get more advanced, you're involved in complex movement while also needing to pay attention to a whole bunch of other stuff, like the guy that's trying to hit you, for instance. And so what happens is you need to learn to understand how to spread your awareness and get done what needs to be done at the same time. And with this gentleman from 2 weeks ago, who was talking about getting overwrought when he had to speak to certain people professionally or publicly. And I had him, doing this kind of stuff. And he was able to get himself involved enough in the physical movements to where he forgot that he had been stressing himself out. And he wrote to me and said, it's amazing. He said, you gave me very little in the way of instruction. And I feel like I kind of ad-libbed it. And wow, I really got a change in my emotional state. And I do my best to really believe in my clients, to believe that they're competent. Needless to say, they're intelligent, that they're capable of figuring stuff out. Maybe they need a little help sometimes from Charlie or somebody else, but they're highly capable, competent people. And depending on who your audience is, let's say you work with people are having drug addiction problems or alcoholism or whatever. I know from the past, it can be very easy to not really appreciate these people anymore. You know, kind of like, well, he's a damn drug addict. What do you expect? You know. And if we do that in any way, shape, or form, it's going to make it really difficult to help this person. So that I think that when you do the kind of work that I do and other people also, but I'm just talking for myself, just wanted to make clear that I'm not saying only me, is we strive to transform the lives of others while doing the same for ourselves. And, you know, when I first started going to therapy, I've known a lot of very, very interesting people in the course of my life. And one of my best friends at the time was taking the largest dose of methadone in the New York City, I don't know, health system, whatever it's called exactly. So he was taking, in fact, he took a much bigger dose than most of the other people who were taking methadone, which was meant to help them recover from heroin usage. And he had the, I don't know how he met this gentleman, but he got to know one of the most well-known psychiatrists in New York City, and I think all of the United States for a while. And his name was Herbie Rosenthal. Lovely guy. And my friend Jerry was seeing Herbie for free. You know, the insurance, the city insurance system or whatever was paying for the sessions. And so I had recently broken up with my wife, and Herbie, my friend Jerry contacted Herbie and asked him if he wouldn't be kind enough to use his name while I was the client for a number of sessions. And Herbie always had this incredible selection of cookies that he offered you at the beginning of each session, and a very interesting selection of teas. And then what often happened was I'd be talking, and I had never done therapy before, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be expecting or not. But I'd be talking, and Herbie would not often go to sleep. And this annoyed me. And I used to actually call him Herbie because my friend Jerry called him Herbie instead of Dr. Rosenthal. And I call out, Herbie! And he would he'd have a startled reaction. I said, I'm talking to you and you're sleeping. He looked at me with his usual kindness. And he said, Charlie, do you think this is the first time I've heard this story? And boy, that slowed me down. And I even said to him, I'm not here trying to be like a novelist or something. And I'm sure that the general parts of the story I'm telling you, you've heard before, but my God, how does it make me feel that you're falling asleep? And Herbie, true to his profession, said, "Oh, that's a good question. How does it make you feel?" And at some point, when I was talking to Herbie during another session, and I really liked the gentleman, he was kind and caring. And I said, "Herbie, how about you? You've been through therapy?" And he was actually a psychiatrist. So he was a medical doctor. And I guess you call it a psychologist at the same time. That's what a psychiatrist is, I believe. I said, "How about you? You've been to therapy?" He said, "I saw my therapist 3 times a week for 7 years." And I said, 3 times a week for 7 years? My God, how did you ever stop? And he said, everything was measured. Well, I thought about it, and I felt stable enough that I could do okay on my own. That's when he stopped going 3 times a week down to nothing. I said, "Wow, you must have gone cold turkey at least a little bit." So with what we're doing here, I've been lately calling it Seishindo wisdom coaching. And we strive to transform the lives of our clients or other people while doing the same for ourselves. And in this work, we look to equip our students with the tools to guide others through a process of transformation while concurrently learning and transforming themselves, is what we do with our students. Our work is in helping others to transform their lives is one and the same with the work that our students do to transform the lives of their clients. So do you understand what I'm saying here is that I don't do the X and or Y technique with client number one, or I might do the X and Y technique, although I tend not to use techniques. But for the most part, I don't try to do anything with my clients that I don't look to do with myself. You see, so like I was talking before about this phenomenal restaurant I went to last night before we formally started the class. And I don't look to feed my clients any of the food I make until I've tasted it myself. And I realized that even if I was this phenomenal chef that I met last night, that the food he made was based on his opinions. There is no right and wrong when it comes to making good food or any art form. So I think of the work that I'm doing and some of my students and friends are doing with clients, I think of it as an art form. And an art form where I've done a lot of studying. Some of it will be of a scientific nature, although that doesn't concern me so much. But I've tried all of these things, and I'm asking you and other people to do on myself first. So please keep that in mind. And I mean, certainly with my friend Herbie that I was talking about a few minutes ago, he was quite separate. And, I'm not at all sure what he was like in his private life. And I mean, really not at all sure what he was like in his private life. Because he wasn't looking to show me who or what he was in his private life. He was there as a mental health professional. And the term mental health, I always think is a bit funny because mental means thinking. And when we get depressed, when we get angry, when we get whatever, I really don't think it's because we're thinking a certain way. I think that our emotional state changes and we don't know how to control it. So take a deep breath, everyone now, please. And, particularly in the beginning, if I say to people, take a deep breath, people are nodding, some people are taking notes, and nobody's taking a deep breath, or almost no one's taking a deep breath. I wonder why that is, So you take a deep breath, and I'm in Tokyo right now. I can hear some traffic going by. It's not a busy street, but there's some traffic. A minute or two ago, my daughter passed by. My lovely, truly lovely daughter passed by, realizing I was teaching a class, so she quieted down quickly. Her mom held up some books to let me know she was going to the library. Meanwhile, I'm looking at Sigrid Gustafsson, and I normally might think she was tuning in from Europe, but because of her name, but I realized that the time would be completely wrong for that. And there's Julie wearing this wool hat that I think maybe she said, I'll make Charlie think a little bit. And she's got a cat well behind her, walking around doing what cats do. And here we are. And, I really wonder how much of the different statements that were supposedly made by Einstein were actually spoken or written by Einstein. But here's one. A human being is a part of the whole, called by us, quote unquote, universe. A part limited in time and space. Each person experiences themselves, their thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest. A kind of optical delusion of consciousness. And this delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few people nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. And one of the things I suggest when working with clients or, working with you lovely people here now is you'll do well to have a whole treasure trove of statements like this that you read from time to time. Time to time, meaning for me, I try to read at least one or two such statements a day. If not, some days I might feel like I need 4 or 5 statements because I'm feeling, for some reason today, really separate from the rest of the world. And intellectually, I know that I'm not separate from the rest of the world. And, particularly, so I'm in Tokyo, and I haven't been in Tokyo for, I don't know, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years. And my Japanese speaking ability was never the best, or never as good as I would have liked it to have been. And I must say I've been quite gratified this trip, just spontaneously remembering stuff in Japanese that, I don't know, I didn't think I would remember. And my daughter even remarked something like, "Oh, Dada, your Japanese is better than I thought it would be." Because my daughter is fluent in both Japanese and English. And now she's also learning French. And the movie making facility inside my head needless to say, also really affects my body. And I think it's so important to keep in mind, you, me, everyone, you're so much more than just your thoughts. And it's your thoughts. Without thinking, there is no feeling. Feeling could mean, going back for a moment to the story of my dog dying recently and feeling a little sadness on my end. Snubbing my toe on something and like, feeling that. And maybe, guess what? Maybe I'm saying, "Oh, Charlie, you're such a clumsy fool," or something like that. And I'm off on this trip that's just taking me away from the beauty of life. And most of us, most of the time, don't realize that we're taking another one of these unscripted side trips. And depending on the content of the side trip, will either add to the quality of our life or subtract from the quality of our life. And one of the things I want to say for you folks that are here to learn how to do something vaguely similar with other people that I'm doing with you guys today, and you might even be wondering, and what the hell is he doing anyway, except just going on and on like he tends to do. But number one, well, the stories that I'm telling about my dog and everything else, they're what's called, if I get this word correct today, They're what's called isomorphic stories. And isomorphic stories are meant to be stories that you can relate to yourself and to your own life. And even if I'm telling a story that might sound like a science fiction story, for instance, and people are floating along 5 feet above the surface of the earth or 105 feet or whatever, there'll be elements to that story where you're relating the story to your own life. So they're isomorphic stories. And I don't, well, maybe sometimes I do tell stories that are kind of a way of me showing off, talking about how great I am or something. But mostly that's not what I'm doing. And for instance, when I talk to you about some of my struggles, I'm doing that not just like, oh, let's have a couple of beers and I'll tell you what's going wrong with my life and you can tell me a few things about what's going wrong with your life. But one of the reasons that I tell my students, my clients, my friends even, some of the times when I lose my way, is because we're all going to lose our way from time to time. And I don't want to try to make believe that I'm living some kind of higher quality life than anyone else. And sometimes, because I can get fairly lost sometimes, particularly after my cancer treatment, which I'm still recovering from close to 2.5 years later. Sometimes I need to talk to a friend, someone that cares about me. Because I need it. I am not, what did I just say? That I was going to say Milton Erickson, that's interesting. Albert Einstein said, we have this delusion that we're separate from everybody else, but we're not. And the more you have that delusion, I believe the more you're going to be struggling. So here's today. For me, it's morning, getting close to 10 o'clock in the morning, so that's not so early. But anyway, it's still morning. And to the best that I'm capable, I'm going to do my best to make it a good day. To make it a day that has some love in it. To make it a day where I show appreciation of some sort to the person working behind the counter at the coffee shop, for instance. And one of the things about being back in Japan is I was never fully fluent in Japanese, but I could sit around in a pub with my friends for hours and talk to them, and they never really critiqued my grammar, so I was never certain of how bad my grammar was, but they could understand me and I could understand them. And so when I'm back this time in Japan after a number of years, wow, it's really lovely. It's really lovely. Isomorphic stories. And in paying attention, you'll notice that I'm pausing a lot. And I said, and you'll notice, and I paused, that I'm pausing a lot. Because what's well known by people that do this kind of work is pausing really leads people to think about the last thing that you just said. So, I was just thinking today, pause, 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 pause. Just saying it like that will tend to get you thinking. And here we are together, supporting each other, being respectful to each other. And this talking that I'm doing is not at all like the talking that I'm doing when I'm just, sitting around with a few friends, whether it's drinking a beer or not. But I'm doing this talking with the hopes of somehow adding to the quality of your life. And I'm not trying to add to the quality of your life, not because I think there's something missing in your life or there's something missing in you. I believe, which is different than the truth, I believe that we can all use a little support in our lives. Why not? And Herbie Rosenthal went to therapy 3 times a week for, what did I say, 7 years or something? Or it might have even been 17 years. Because there was a stage in his life that he felt he needed to go 3 times a week. You want me to feel bad about that? You want me to feel incompetent about that? And he was helping all of his clients at the same time. Even somehow when he used to fall asleep. Oh, sorry. Even when he would fall asleep, and I'd be telling him the most important thing that went on in my life this week. This was so important to me. Charlie, you think I haven't heard that story before? And more than once, by the way. And it can be nicely humbling to realize, holy mackerel, I've been making this whole thing up the whole time. First, I went through an anger stage. Then I went through a depression stage. Then I went through whatever stage. I am the director, the producer, and the leading actor. And there's been way too many times when I thought I was living, quote unquote, real life. But like I can remember years and years ago, like 40 years ago, and I was at a party here in Japan. And some guy, young guy like me, he was even younger than me, maybe he was in his 20s, and he got onto this storytelling about how he had gotten into 2 different fist fights in the last, I don't know, week or 10 days. And I just looked at this guy and said, how the hell do you get into a fist fight in Japan? Because, if you step on a Japanese person's foot, they apologize. When you step on their foot, they apologize. Because somehow their foot could have still been in a better location, so you wouldn't have stepped on it. So how do you get in a fight with Japanese people? A fist fight. This guy had the recipe for that. And these damn Japanese men, they drive me crazy, damn it. Okay. Well, at least I'm glad I'm not Japanese then. So, pacing it all. The pausing is meant to give you some space to take little micro explorations. And I wouldn't even be disappointed if a couple of you nod off. And if I saw you nodding off, I'd go, that's right. Just take another deep breath. Yes, that's right, that's right. Maybe even 2 or 3 or 4 deep breaths. So I'm just wondering if there is anyone, and there might not be, but is there anyone today that would like some help or assistance in exploring a challenge or a dream? Something I've been dreaming about wanting to do, or something that I've been struggling with, or anyway, is there anyone that would like to? There's Connie, my good friend Connie. Okay, and Connie, you supposedly only have 1 more minute.
Right. So maybe I shouldn't be the one today.
Well, I'm quite happy to, but
No, you're right. I wasn't watching the time as closely as you were. So thank you.
okay.
Next time.
Yes. I'll ask earlier on. Does anybody have a dream or a challenge or something that they'd like a little assistance in?
It's not really, I don't know if it's a challenge or, but you understand this, I think, Charlie, but a lot of times when I've been a lot more positive because I'm been out of my, been away from my cancer thing for a couple years now also. And that's
Wait, let's start again, Jenny, and let's
slow
do
it
it
down.
this way.
Okay.
Let's do it this way in order to help you better. Is what you were just doing, which is fine, I'm just trying to help you, is you just did a bunch of what I would call pre-talking.
Okay.
And I have to,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
yeah, slow down. So I have to understand your pre-talking first to know, has she made her statement about what she'd like help with today?
No. Okay. No.
Yes. So slower.
Oh, okay. So I just get a little
No, no,
anxious.
no, 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 no. Sorry. And we know each other well, so I can
Yeah, yeah.
be like this with
I
you.
know you when we used to bounce off the balls. Which,
Yes.
probably by the fact that I still have those big bouncing balls in my house.
Okay. So, Ginny,
Hmm.
come from a place, please, that's what I call lower and slower.
Slower and slower. Okay. Beautiful.
So different than, just listen
Mm,
to me for another minute.
I'm closing
Different.
my eyes.
Okay, well, Jenny, I'm going to try to, it's like, whoa, that's way too much energy for me. I mean, it could be okay, but I don't think I'm going to help
No,
someone.
that's what tonight is about, to pause, slow it down,
Yes. Yes.
and keep it simple.
Yes.
So my challenge
Good. That's a lot better. Thank you. Go ahead. So my challenge.
at times, every 6 months, I go for a scan, and I get a little anxious prior to
Okay. Slow down again. And in other words,
it.
since, of course, for people that might not be aware, I'm a cancer survivor also. You, of course, know that. So what you just said is, let me just give it a little different take. So, Ginny, when I go for my scan,
Mm,
just like you and every other cancer survivor,
mm,
I get somewhat antsy,
mm.
right? Otherwise, it might sound like only Charlie gets antsy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, now I feel better already. It's normal.
We're in the same boat.
Mm.
Go ahead.
So it has gotten better.
Okay. There's a great
I
intervention
guess, I
place.
guess,
Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Don't go off yet. It, what's it? It has gotten better. What's it?
well, well, what happened to me, and I think that's why I find this challenging at times,
Okay. Good stop.
is
So
because,
you took off right there without answering my question.
wow,
What is it?
oh, I don't even like saying the word. You say it's so nice. I don't, I get nervous saying the word.
Saying what word?
Cancer. I don't know. I'm not friends with it or something. I don't know. I get,
You know, as you've, I think, heard me say before, Jenny, is when I got diagnosed, I mean, I had my CAT scan. The doctor said, come back in 2 hours or whatever it was. And when I walked back into his office, I knew he didn't have any good news for me. That was obvious. He hadn't even spoken yet, and I just went, uh-huh, okay, take a deep breath, Charlie. And so when he told me, basically, Mr. Badenhop, sorry to relay this news to you, but we found cancer during your scan. And the very first thing I did was not in front of him, because if I do this, he's liable to get freaked out as to what's going on. But the moment I got out of the office, I did do this. And Joel knows this for a fact because Joel helped me with this. I said, dear God, which is my God, I'm not selling any kind of religion or anything. Dear God, thank you for this cancer.
Wow.
And I don't know what I'm meant to learn from this cancer, but thank you for the cancer. And of course, I would prefer to recover from this cancer. And then a little later in my recovery process, I was moved to say, God, you know where I live.
Mm,
You've always known where I live.
mm,
And if you've come to take me home again, and wow, I'm getting like a little steamy-eyed here. Good thing I was able to see Julie's cat behind her.
mm, mm,
If this is my time, I won't fight you.
mm.
I'll go with you. And if it's not my time, and if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you for your help. If it's not my time,
Wow.
it's up to you, God. Here I am. I do my best to be your servant.
Mm. Beautiful.
You see, because
So
I've
you
I've
friended
done
it. You friended, yeah, you friended your condition.
well, I was an Aikido student for like 30 years. I did it professionally. We don't have any form of attack. We don't have kicking. We don't have punching. But I will tell you, there was a time when I could really use that Aikido if necessary, and it was never necessary, but
Wow.
I could really use it as a martial art.
Mm,
So I'm not a victim.
mm,
And I think the biggest thing is, this is my experience since I've had the cancer, since I've recovered, since I talk to people sometimes trying to help them with cancer, is most people feel like big time victims. Holy shit, man. There I was, just being a nice guy as usual. And all of a sudden, like my doctor, because I really schmoozed my doctor and got him to really talk to me. And I said, so doc, and I love calling him doc because that's a very Thai thing to do. And I think my doctor really got a kick out of me. I'm sure he did. But I said, so you told me I have stage 4 cancer.
mm.
What does that actually mean? And he looked at me and kind of went like this with his head and said, okay, you asked for it. I'm going to tell you. Stage 4 cancer means that you most likely won't live to the duration of your treatment protocol. And that was like, whew, that was a mouthful. And again, I'm feeling myself being emotionally, I don't know what the right word is. Could say buffeted a little bit. But anyway, I said to him, I'm not happy with what you just told me, but I'm very thankful for what you just told me because now, oof, now I know the size of the mountain I've got to climb. And it's funny for me, I think because I did a lot of serious study in Japan with a martial art, there are certain things, wow, there are certain things, although my Japanese is far from fluent, I switch into Japanese
Mm.
in my head. And for instance, Kami-sama arigato gozaimasu. Kami-sama is God. Kami is God. Sama means a highly vaulted person. Kami-sama arigato gozaimasu. Itsumo ni nattemasu. And I feel like those words, I mean, I don't know really about my pronunciation and everything, but I feel like I say that as naturally as a Japanese person. So you see, Jenny, one of the ongoing, like I said a few months ago, the doctor discovered for the first time I had a remnant of a brain clot, a blood clot in my brain. And that, I don't know the right word really, but that annoyed me. And it's like, shit, something else kind of thing. And I actually said, boy, this cancer, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Right, right. Actually, can I just interrupt 1 second? You just said two important things. My faith in God has grown tremendously because of my last 8 years of back and forth, and my appreciation of life has grown tremendously. So,
Yes, good.
so many beautiful gifts.
Good. And that's,
It's just a little, I get a little, it's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. But
anxiety, that's all.
yeah. So Joel helped me craft
Mm.
this very beautiful, I don't know what we would call it. Some people might call it a transcenduction or whatever. But it was kind of my conversation with God,
Mm.
giving thanks for the cancer.
Mm.
And if I was in a playful mood, I could have said, and if it's not one damn thing, it's another. And sometimes when I tell people about some of the things that I've done so many different things in my life and built a clothing factory in Nepal, and I could go on, and people say to me, my God, has this been in just one life, or are you explaining a couple of past lives, And, Jenny, I realized, like I have done a lot of interesting, on my own small scale, great things. And some people would call me very brave. And I go like this, as you see me rocking back and forth. And I have to say, I don't have to, but that's, the way we use language sometimes. They say that because they don't really know me. When I was doing all of these, again, on a small scale, amazing things, I was on overdrive the whole time. So better to do something than nothing. You understand what I mean?
Mm.
And that something was starting a new business, and thank goodness I wasn't doing, terrible things with my time and energy. But I couldn't sit still. I couldn't stand still. And frankly, I was frightened. And so I've had a good deal of difficulty since I've quote unquote recovered or am in recovery from cancer. Because for the first time in my life, I've really been suffering with depression.
Mm.
And my good friend Judy Deloja, who I've been talking to fairly regularly for the last, call it 6 months. Judy just one day said, I don't even get where you're going because, okay, you're saying you're depressed, but what the hell can you expect? You got poisoned with chemotherapy, and it's a major, major poison, 15-hour drip of poison into your system, and then I got violently sick. Not just sick, but violently sick. And then I couldn't eat for 4 months. You know, and that's mainly because it was throat cancer. So anyway, to not eat for 4 months, you know, let me hear somebody brag about having done more than that, you know? And so I think part of it was when I didn't have to climb that mountain anymore.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm making this up in my head, but I felt like I was floundering around, like with nothing to really, what am I going to accomplish today? Kind of thing, you know? So I've been very lucky in the course of my life to have known some very high quality psychics. And I know there's a whole bunch of nonsense psychics out there in the world. That's not who I'm talking about. The first high quality psychic I ever saw in my life, happened to meet, was in Port Arthur, Texas, when I was going through some military training. And I stopped into one of these little small stores with the neon light saying psychic or something like that. And I went in. I certainly wasn't going to get talked into spending a lot of money with this woman. But let me see, I was like 20 years old. And what added to the whole thing was this woman had, her English wasn't exactly up to speed. So I had to a little bit, you know, add in some pieces or whatever. And she just looked at me. She asked to see my hands. And she said, "Oh, my child, you have already been through so much." Too much, she said. But believe me, God is blessing you. And then she told me about certain in detail. Like I was terrified of water, meaning, you know, oceans or swimming pools when I was younger. Terrified. And one of the first things she told me was, you drowned in a previous life, and that's still affecting you today. Now, from everything in the whole world, She says she drowned in a previous life. And there, I didn't learn how to swim until I was like 13 or 14 years old. So I should really stop.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. You know,
It's an
thank
hour and
you
20
so much.
minutes.
Yeah, we'll stop. But thank you. And yes, every time I'm with you and everyone here, it's just like the pausing and the appreciation for life. And it's a gift. It really is a gift. But it's a gift that keeps on giving when you go within
Yes. So
and pause.
I just want to ask, but I really should stop because an hour and 20 minutes is up. But Sigrid, how did you get back to me?
I met you in Santa Fe with David Brown and Eddie Marmel and the Newfield
Okay.
group. I met you there, which was some time ago. I live in southern New Mexico, and
Okay.
I'm still in contact. We have a chat a couple times a month with David. So I was looking forward to, I heard you were doing well and reconnecting with you.
So thank you for that. And this is the first class David hasn't been to in quite a while, but
He told me he was out of town and couldn't come today. So
okay. Well, it's always, I find it very pleasing, when and then because I've been doing all of this for a long time, but sometimes I've even met people like 20 years later, and Santa Fe was how many years ago?
oh, let's see.
Could have been 20.
Yeah, at least 20.
Yeah.
Because I was going
So
through
good.
ending a relationship. That's how I count back to it. That's how I know. Remember.
Right. Okay. So I hope today was okay for everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful, Charlie. Can I
Uh,
ask, is there a David Feidelson still in Santa Fe? She knows him.
Who?
David Feidelson? I learned NLP from him years ago. Okay. He
I
moved
don't
to
know.
Santa Fe like 20 years ago. Okay.
okay. So please, all of you, come back again.
Thank you,
Joel,
Charlie.
I really need to come back again because otherwise I don't do such a good job of running the class. And Julie, lovely to see you again. And like I've said to you in a dash of an email or two, if you need some help from me, you ask for it because I'm
Yeah.
not going to give you any help without you asking, but I'm happy to help you.
Yes, I appreciate that always.
Okay. Thank you, my friends. God bless us.
Oh, God bless.
Bye-bye. Oh, thank
Bye.
you.